best of luck this weekend. Speaking to the captains, and I asked them, what it was, not what it was like, but what did they try to do over these last couple of months, and how did they kind of change the way that they were going about things? How proud are you of your captains over these last couple of months and with what's been going on?
Extremely. They not only have been great off the field, they've been really helping me and the coaching staff getting the message across. So they've been great leaders. I've talked about them all the time, and a great liaison between the team and the coaching staff, and couldn't be more proud of what they're doing.
Nico?
Thanks, Tower. Coach, does it feel like a fresh start for this team? The NCAA tournament starts, nothing from the regular season. I don't want to say nothing, but the record, all the stuff, it doesn't really matter anymore. It's win or go home, and a new opponent even as well. Is that kind of the feeling of the team right now?
Yeah, I think that there've been a lot of a little extra hop in their step this week, and knowing what's at stake. And we talked to them again today, and had great attention on the sidelines today. So one of the things I talked about before practice was, hey, this is everything you work for, and when you're on the sidelines, everybody's paying attention, because we're not talking just to one person out here. We're talking to the whole group, and they really paid attention. I said, you want to make sure that you leave everything on the field, and that if you have any questions, ask. We want this to be our next game, not our last game.
Lindsay?
Well, good afternoon. As we approach the end of the season, regardless of what happens in the next few weeks, the question pops into my head that I can't remember asking you before. Each year, as you go through the process of deciding whether you want to come back for another year, is that made right after the season? Is it made during the summer? What is your process? And have you thought at all about your future in 2022?
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, that decision's already been made, and that's what I want to do.
But so you could say right now, as we sit here and May 12th, you'll be back in 21-22 season?
Well, yeah, if it's up to me, I'm coming back. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Tyler?
Coach, Georgetown, your team hasn't played them since they left the Big East. Is there any resemblance from those Big East teams to where they are now, almost 9 years later?
Any resemblance? Well, I think probably, Georgetown teams have always played hard. The head coaches have been competitors and good X's and O's guys. And I think that the Hoyas play hard. They're good from one end of the field to the other. It starts with their attack and then goes into their midfield, which is very athletic and hard to match up with. And then their team defense has been very solid. They use a couple of poles on the wings, and they're very athletic there. They get after the loose balls, and they compete. They go, and once you get through it all, McElroy's been very good this year, and one of the better goalies on paper in the country.
Jenna?
Hi, Coach. Similar to Tyler's question, how do you perceive the idea of the Syracuse Georgetown rivalry from the former Big East lacrosse? Goodness gracious.
Well, it probably all started with basketball, right? From for me, anyways. With the Thompson, Boeheim era, and it's kind of started there for me. And then when they started playing lacrosse, it became fairly important. But I think more so for me than the team. I don't think the team would recall any of that. From the last, especially from the last times we played.
Andrew?
Hi, John. I just wanted to check lineup and injury-wise. Are there any guys who are banged up in previous weeks? Are they on track to return, or is anybody new kind of added to the list after the Robert Morris game for just kind of outlook-wise for Saturday?
Well, we're hoping to have Brenda Vealis back. He's practicing, playing pretty well. What's good is he maintained his conditioning while he was recovering. So that was one of my concerns, that he'd come back and not be ready to get up and down the field. As you know, that position is an athletic position, and you've got to have good conditioning. And he's been practicing well, so knock on wood.
With somebody like a vealis, is it like when you do, like you mentioned the conditioning, is it important that he's ready to go and can go as, I guess, regularly as he could and when he was completely healthy before, or do you plan to like ease him in with the other short sticks?
Well, you know, he brings back, he's one of the, I call him a starter, you know, between he and Domi and Dearth, you know, they kind of had equal runs. So he brings back a lot of experience, and, you know, as long as he's ready to go, he'll get an even, you know, he'll get out there early. Some of it depends on, you know, how many possessions there are for Georgetown. You know, in some of the games we've had to use a lot of short sticks and poles because we've just played a lot of defense. You know, if we can get some possessions off the face off and at least go equal or maybe a little better than them, then we won't have to go so far down the depth chart.
Thank you.
Brent?
John, in some of the games, you've given up a lot of goals. I mean, these are great players, so it speaks for what they do, like Chris Gray at North Carolina, Pat Cavanaugh at Notre Dame. I was wondering if, as you look at Georgetown, you look at Jack Carraway, who's one of the leading scorers in the country, if there's any patterns from those previous games that maybe you have to eliminate when you approach a talented player like him and really the Georgetown offense as a whole.
Yeah, well, he's a size issue. He's a strong dodger. He'll dodge in transition. And yeah, you have to know where he is. You have to be ready to help out. He's a little different than some attackmen where he likes to get out in front of the goal. He likes to dodge off that right wing like many midfielders do. So kind of a cross between an attackman and a midfielder along with the size, and got a great outside shot, which makes him more of an issue. So we have to know where he is. And then obviously his counterpart, number 4, Haley, just, you know, has 47 assists. So obviously he's going to work. Caraway will work hard when Haley has the ball, and so will Watson and the other midfielders, because he's got such great vision that, you know, that they work hard off the ball. So you really can't be ball watching. You got to know where your man is at all times.
Thank you. Next one, Nate.
Hey, John, kind of a similar thought and follow up to Lindsay's question. As it relates to the staff and scheme, does this season help inform you on whether any changes need to be made, or do you look at this year as an outlier and kind of the exceptional talent that some of these teams have loaded up on this year that makes it harder in some ways this year to win?
Yeah, no, we'll look at things at the end of the year, but I have a good staff. They've done a good job. If you look at our losses, for the most part, look at the face-off statistics, and we've had to play in our losses an awful lot of defense, and then throw in some of the injuries that we've had along the way, especially at the defensive end of the field. I mean, you know, Nick DiPietro's 4 years of experience, and all of a sudden you've got to, you know, put somebody in that has only played fall ball with us, and you know, has gotten better and played well in games. I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of defense we've had to play. It's been an unusual year. You know, I was watching Duke and Carolina the other day, and I think they were, you know, the score was 3-2 or tied at threes. Carolina wins the next 7 of 8 faceoffs. Next thing you know, it's 10-3, and now it's pretty difficult for Duke to try to get back in the game. So it's that's probably something that should be talked about with the rules committee going forward. The changes they made in the faceoff, and it maybe even made it more lopsided than it has been in the past.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Arrow, and then Jenna again.
Hey, Coach. I wanted to ask specifically about Domi. When you guys brought him in, was he expected to switch the defensive side of the ball immediately, or was that more a decision that you guys had after he came up?
It was more a decision after he came here. We definitely recruited him more as an offensive midfielder, although with his athletic ability, we knew he could be a two-way guy. And then it came more from, you know, depth on offensive midfield, and the fact that he could play defense. So, you know, he was a he was a bonus for us. Same with Brendan vealis. I mean, we recruited Brendan. He was a face-off guy at Ward Melville High School, and recruited him and basically coming out of ninth grade, 10th grade, and an entirely different player than what he was then. Very athletic and strong. He wasn't then, and our need for him to step up defensively came at just the right time.
Thank you, Coach.
Jenna?
Yeah, some of the players wore One Love stickers on the Robert Morris game and also posted their support for the organization on social media. So my question is, what does that organization mean to your players and the lacrosse community as a whole?
I think it's something they believe in, and I think it's a great organization. And I think they individually came to the conclusion that's what they wanted to support. And, I'm good with that.
Tyler?
Coach, kind of bouncing off Brent's question from a little earlier, who poses more of a threat, you think, in your eyes, TJ Haley or Jay Caraway?
Well, they're both big threats. It's just entirely different. I think Haley is more of a, he's a distributor. He's a good dodger, but he's looking to get the rest of the team involved. And you can tell through film and watching him that they really start moving off the ball when he has the ball and stick, because they know if they get open, he's going to get it. Where Caraway, I think, is more of a kind of a strong dodger, kind of a bull dodger. He wants to get to top side. He wants to get to his right. And he wants to be more of a physical player and do more of the scoring, where I think Haley wants to do more of the distributing and feeding and finding open people. But both dangerous in their own right.
Allie?
Yeah, this is bouncing off of Jenna's question from earlier, but would you ever consider either you or the team partnering on a campaign with the One Love Foundation?
It's something that we discussed. It hasn't come up. I think that, again, the players made a decision themselves to, support the organization. And again, I'm good with that.
Jenna?
All right, my final question, I promise. So what have you seen on film from Jake Carraway, the talk of the town apparently, this season? And can you give any insight to what the defensive plan is, obviously without giving away everything you plan to do?
I'll say more of the same, basically. I think he's a strong dodger. He's good in transition also, not only because he can shoot the ball from the outside, if you drop in and, try to stop a 2-on-1 break or whatever the numbers may be, if he catches it, he's got that great range, he's going to shoot it. And then he's a very strong dodger. So he's going to try to bull his way in. And as a result, if he does that, we've got to be aware of him, and we've got to be able to help when we see needed.
Got time for a couple more. We'll start with Lindsay.
Yeah, just the second half of my question earlier. I know you said you plan to be back and you'd love to be back. I'm sure over the past few weeks, you've had plenty of chances to talk to your bosses on various topics. Has that topic ever come up? Have they ever indicated to you that maybe they would be looking to make a change?
Has not come up once.
So, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Last question to Tyler.
Coach, in the days after the bracket was announced, there's a lot of talk about where certain teams were seeded and what the matchups are. And one of them was that your team got a rather favorable draw. What are your thoughts on the fact that Georgetown this week, a team that Syracuse on paper matches up well against, and then if you win, you will play Virginia, a team you've beaten twice so far. It's kind of a easy road to the Final Four in theory.
I thought, listening to the selection process, it's so entirely different from what I've been involved with in the past. I was on the selection committee once upon a time, and we really, used the numbers. And as a couple of the people I listened to said, they're going to be using more of the eye test this year. So it's, I felt good about, all of a sudden it's Carolina and Duke. And then all of a sudden Notre Dame's a little bit farther down than I thought. But obviously the RPI and the strength of schedule didn't come into play. I think think we were roughly 7 in the RPI and number 4 in the strength of schedule. You know, so other years that would be a seeded position, and it was just different last year. So, I mean, this year. So it's kind of interesting how it all played out. I didn't really have time, you know, as soon as we saw that we were playing Georgetown, it was all about getting some Georgetown film and getting to know who they are, meeting with the staff to come up with a practice plan for the week. And, you know, I think I don't mind the seed. Just the selection process was different than usual. It's, you know, we got to go out and eat whatever's on our plate. And right now, Georgetown's on our plate, and we got to make the best of it.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll see you guys Saturday night, and hopefully we can see you next week as well. We'll see what happens. Thank you.